Good morning. Today we have a wonderful session at the wonderful Gaida forum. We are going to talk about modern regions, what it is, a modern region, and what sort of employer it is. We have wonderful guests, Andrey Betin, Deputy Governor of the Nizhny Novgorod Oblast, and Olga Semenova, Director of Program of State Management of the Moscow School of Management in SKOLKOVO. We'll start with some simple things. I think it makes no sense to discuss whether the region is an employer is not worth discussing. But what sort of employer should a region be? How must it develop? And what sort of difficulties and impediments can it face? Olga, I would like to start with you because I know that you have written a wonderful study on the subject of modern region, how it should be, what modern regions lack, and what are the existing models of modern regions. So let us start in order to begin our discussion. Speak about the results of your study. What interesting things you have discovered? Dmitry, I would like to touch upon my two studies because the results are really both relevant and very and mutually supplementing each other. Now, the first thing that we have noticed is that regions are now departing from the model of resource distribution to the development model. It is a very difficult transition, which requires absolutely new competences from those who are putting it into practice, and it is a very difficult environment for management. What is the difference? In the current model, the regions have a certain budget, have certain resources, which they distribute among stockholders and actors in order to ensure the sustainable development of the region, so that everything would be kept at the necessary level. And the new environment, the current environment, has new requirements because there could be different models, mono economy or raw materials dependency, etc. But points of growth should be found outside of those traditional industries. And it's very difficult. You can't just say, yesterday we extracted oil and today we'll start doing creative industries. No, it's a very complex process which is initiated by the regional management team, and it engages a large number of stockholders who must be understood, engaged, attracted, and their interests should be taken into account. And it includes both business and social stockholders. Of course, there are so many of them. There could be much more of them than we can think of sitting here, because stockholders are an iceberg, and we normally see only its tip. And as we start working, we find that there are much more of them. And the studies show that our transition to the development management model requires the regional team, the managers, a totally new set of competence which was not necessary in the previous models. That is creating ecosystems and structuring relationships in complex development models, then negotiating skills and communicative skills. How are we to present the results of our work to those who are interested in our activities, our population? And we have a second study which is dedicated to the shortage of managers at the top level. It shows that they in no way see the necessity of acquiring and developing such skills, communications, community building difficult, complex strategic projects of communication with various stockholders. They are mostly interested in regulatory things like what are we to do with our laws, how they affect our activities, etc. Or, in the best case, the relationship with the vertical. How I, as the manager, have to establish my relationships with my superiors and with my inferiors. There is no horizontal communication, horizontal skills. And our managers have not yet understood the necessity of it. They regard it as just some pesky problem of their day-to-day activities. Olga, the studies has not yet been published, but can you tell us the figures? What is the percentage of necessity in Russia? 84% believe that they need to develop, but out of these 84%, around 60% do not understand how they are to change. They understand that they have to change, but they do not understand how. That's an excellent beginning. Andrey, we have already discussed that ideally in such a company there should be a fight, but perhaps today we will not fight because I have found such speakers that would rather agree with each other. And you come from the Nizhny Novgorod region, and I know that a lot has been done there. Could you speak about your experience? Could you refer to Olga's words and then present your experience? Well, you have set the tone for a very interesting discussion. When at first Dmitry started, I thought we will have a different tone. You have touched the raw nerve of this history. The region as the employer. What do we have in a region? In a region, we have a manager's team. These are public servants, municipal workers, and they do not understand what changes are needed. Let's look attentively. Who invested into civil servants at the level of the region from the point of view of learning processes, from the financial point of view? Nobody. It has been done in a very limited way as compared with the business, because the business presents itself as services. And we also should look at ourselves as service providers. So for each public official, the priority is to stick to rules and regulations. And the modern environment says that you need to be multifaceted, that you must be interested from various points of view. And this problem of horizontal communication, horizontal relationships, and the first reason is the people. An unhappy civil servant cannot cannot make a citizen happy, and so the development of our personnel potential is extremely important. It is centered on the family of the units of the Russian Federation, and when we have faced this problem, we have understood that we need to very quickly develop the skills of municipal and employees of civil servants. A large part of people have an education they received 20 or 30 years ago, and they have gone through some job advancement skills or courses or skills development courses, but it is not enough to get the hard or soft competences which are necessary today. When a municipal employee goes to a bank or to a dry cleaners, there's you see there has been a big difference, but the Sberbank team has invested a huge human and material resources. And we in the Nizhny Novgorod region have seen that the process and the people are integrated, and the population is a partner for us, and the business is also a partner to us. Because if you solve only individual problems, like a light bulb is not giving any light, then it's you are not solve systemic problems. So let us start with the civil service servants. How did you prepare you? How did you educate or train them? What steps have you made? First of all, we understood that we need the center of transformation of the state municipal service. Serious, profound transformation. Peter Drucker said culture is strategy for breakfast. So culture is the most important thing. The culture of change, the culture of openness, the culture of cooperation. So we need to have absolutely open public competitions. And today, in the database of the Nizhny Novgorod region, we have 17,000 questionnaires. Why questionnaires and not resumes? Well, I don't like resumes because people write in resumes only good things about themselves and pass over in silence their weaknesses. And questionnaires, which has been developed by the RANIPA, allows us to see also both strong and weak points. And now we have a lot of open activities, and it is necessary to develop the culture of improvement. And without changing the emphasis, we won't be able to do it. We have created a database. In our activities, we very much rely on unity. For the Nizhny Novgorod population, it is the idea of unity is very important. And I would like to give you a few figures. Last year, we trained about 500 to 600 servants per year. But last year, we increased this figure tenfold. So we increased our focus. Olga, you want to make a comment about 200 vacancies? Well, I would like to refer to my study. Andrey, our study, I haven't mentioned it. It was made in all the federal districts of Russia, including, so Nizhny Novgorod was also in it. And it is a very interesting section concerning self-assessment of public servants. And we had scales on various sets of skills, where they said whether they had this skill or not and whether it was important or not. And what's interesting, practically in all the areas, there was a gray area where nobody said that it was no one wrote that a skill was important, but they didn't possess it. So, well, do they really consider themselves ideal soldiers, or whether there is some other phenomenon behind it? Well, we work a lot, thanks to the support by the governor, creating this transformation center, and I, without false modesty, would say that I'm one of the leaders in the country. It allows us to try and to err. But it's not so often that in the state service you can act by trial and error. No, of course, we follow all the basic approaches of regulatory basics, but we do a lot of experimenting. And this sociology in smoking rooms, this informal sociology, shows that not a single civil servant believes that his strong point is his individuality. He believes that his strong is his position, his connections, his other things, other external factors. But no one says that his strong point is his team. And so, working in the field of culture of cooperation, we have determined that individual development plans, they work very slowly. Their effect is rather slow. So we need, our approach is a healthy cell in a healthy organism. So for us, a healthy cell is a section, a department where there are 5, 6, 8 people who work together, who work in harmony. Yes, we wanted it to be so, but these are people who are very different. In the same department, you can have people from 3 or 4 generations, and this is a big problem. They work different, they talk different languages, so they spend a lot of time on negotiating, and the final result is close to zero. Andrey, Olga said that according to the studies, there are a few problem zones. One of them is communication skills, the ability to communicate, which is important for functionaries. Another set is application of results. And third, the architecture of building an ecosystem. I understand that within your project, Team 52, you work on self-assessment, on feedback, on harmonization of teamwork, etc., etc. But do you have still some gray zones, some difficulties? Well, there are a lot of gray zones. What you are saying is really true. You have touched upon a very good team, good point, Team 52. We are trying to train everybody. Within the framework of our corporate university, we are not trying to establish anything new. We try to find good practices that already exist. And only if we don't find them, then we are trying to develop something new. When we have faced this municipality team development, we have seen that municipalities did not interact with each other. It is strange for us. People have a lot of experience in management. You have a neighbor, just learn from his experience. But no, this culture does not exist. But look at the regions. We all compete with each other relentlessly. We can compete in any sphere. But now we have reached an epoch when everything depends on personnel, although it may sound banal. So everybody is trying to provide the best terms for the investor. But the most important factor, the key factor, is human beings, is people. Now we have dived very profoundly in many bodies of executive authority, and we have studied various conduct models. And we have some units in the Nizhny Novgorod. We have seen that in those institutions, there are only 2% of people who have good presenting skills. You see how low is this skills. So there is a disconnection between functionaries and people. They do a lot of work, but people do not see it, and they cannot present it. They cannot explain what they have done. And when people say that functionaries are horrible people, well, of course, they are bronze skin, but at a certain point, they get irritated because they understand that they work a lot, but they do not have this soft skill.
Sounds good. I'd like to follow that topic about the human capital. Olga, my question goes to you. In the framework of 2 surveys that you did, and speaking from your experience, so the current human capital, it is difficult, and at the same time it is easy to work with them. But what about the new stuff? How are you hiring new personnel? How are you addressing the problem of the churn? So probably you touched upon that problem in your survey or in any other your work. Well, thank you so much for a very good question. Several years ago, we worked with central region in Russia with the regional team. In essence, that region encountered a problem of pendulum migration, when people actually would be outflowing to the center, but would be using all the benefits of the home region, so just becoming commuters. The problem was how to address that problem, how to attenuate that wave, to make it not so pronounced, and in essence, along with the region. We came up with a scheme when municipalities would set up new economic growth points, something which will help people to stay at home, to create new jobs, to create necessary infrastructure. And within a year that we worked closely with that team, we managed to set up 10 such points. In essence, there was a fixed number of new jobs. We collected some statistics when the mobile providers are measuring that migration, and they can do that easily. And we saw that the migration went down due to the setting up of the new enterprises, new industries, new companies. And new industries create a demand for education. It means that new generation would get some new degrees and would settle down on their territories. Well, really, that's a very peculiar case, and we'll understand what region you're speaking about. Andrew, Nizhny Novgorod, just like other regions, faces a problem of the outflow of the best people, the best experts. Probably you find yourself in a better position, unlike other regions. But back to our topic, the region is an employer. The region has to take care of the jobs and at the same time has to select the best personnel. How are you working with the students? How are you working with the youth from the vocational schools, from the high schools? Actually, you are selecting that youth, how are you engaging them into the work, offering something? And I'm referring to our joint project that probably you could tell us more about that. I think that that experience would be very interesting for many constituent members of the Russian Federation. Well, that's a very good topic, really. The region is an employer, and let me stress that once again, the region at the moment is a service provider. When we realize that problem, that the authority is no longer a regulator, which is the rule setter, first thing we did, we set up an open project office, and a business was invited to join that. So once they have lots of HR competences at the moment, we brought together 25 biggest companies of Nizhny Novgorod, which along with administration are developing the HR strategy and HR brand of the region, and very soon we're going to present it. That was a very serious piece of work when this is not a tug war that we're doing along with the companies, but when we all together try to address these problems, which are quite acute. Let's have a look at the new professions, for instance, IT specialists. Thanks to the team of the region, thanks to the governor, we got an approval from the government of the Russian Federation to build a campus, IT campus, more than 200,000 square meters, more than 5,000 rooms in dormitories when people may complement to one another. We have actually 3,000 IT specialist shortage per annum. At the same time, we are leaders in the country in terms of the product per capita. That's a demand. Can you imagine Intel? The biggest office outside North America is located in Nizhny Novgorod. So it means that this is what Olga said before. You don't have to create something from scratch. But once, for instance, starting from Kulybin, you saw the development of the scientific ideas in Nizhny Novgorod. You have to pick it up. Betting on engineering, for instance, there, and we have to think 50 years ahead from now. It means that we have to think about the preschooling, primary school, secondary school, university, and middle age. The region was helped very much by this platform, Russia, the country of opportunities. The survey showed that, all in all, in the post-Soviet territory, the hard skills fare quite well, whereas the soft skills are not very well developed. The school children and the students, they are not capable of mastering that skills, and no one is training them. So, I mean, the skills of communication and a target-driven approach, etc., this is what students are not fluent in. And besides, professors in academia are not fluent in that either. So it means that we cannot do that ourselves. We do not include that in the educational process. Olga, I know that you have some comments, but I interrupted Andrew. Andrew, over to you back. Along with the platform Russia, the country of opportunity, we thought that we may choose an alternative way. That was a very cool project. First, we decided to monitor the work of every student and then proceed with the development of soft skills. Nizhny Novgorod has 13 academia. That's a big number. We made a proposition and we were supported in bringing them together. Now, 7 academia, along with 4 vocational schools, are working together. And we went even further, because without that, the reality cannot exist. What is important, last year, Nizhny Novgorod celebrated its 800th anniversary, and there were a lot of infrastructural solutions. So, for instance, a school with 1,150 students was set up with 3 standing-alone buildings. And totally different spheres of life were covered. And that means that we can embrace that within one syllabus. And students will be supported on that. More important, the transition to the student life and entering the real market, so that the public administration could notice the best personnel. 40 enterprises entered our joint project. Until summer, this figure would grow to 60. And it's quite easy. We are lacking instruments, approaches, and methodologies, but we find it easy. Why? Because we all are looking to the eyes of the death. We all realize that story when you can snatch an expert, a specialist, an employee, this actually is expiring just. You cannot fall forever. Otherwise, the market would explode. You cannot snatch people forever. This process is not endless. We did our survey as well, and 52% of the people say that for the employees, the environment matters. They are ready to sacrifice the pay rate, or they are ready to sacrifice the bright future of their career. But environment matters, because you understand that this is where you are going to bring up your children and you are going to help your parents, and that would remain a key factor. Thanks to the 800th anniversary, I think the residents of Nizhny Novgorod obtained its identity. I think that the mentality changed a lot. Olga, you wanted to share some comments. Well, unfortunately, I cannot debate that. I cannot retort, because I subscribe to what Andrey said, and I would like to even elaborate on that. First of all, this phenomena of shortage of civil servants in the public administration and a shortage of soft skills, this is a legacy of our industrial past. When there was a conveyor belt production, simplified production required some very specific technical knowledge and skills, which, by the way, were reproduced easily. So it means that it required people who would be ready to work on a conveyor belt. But now we're facing new phenomena. 2 years ago, everyone was speaking about VUCA. phenomena, but now you live only once. Phenomena has become a buzzword. That means that people now matter not only the pay rate, but also the environment where they're living. It should be motivating. And they have to realize themselves. And it means that it poses a new challenge for the public administration, for the authorities, not just creating jobs and growth of the tax revenues. How to create an environment that would be attractive for the creative class, for the YOLO-minded people, to create that attractive place for them, that they would be reluctant to leave. That resource is very important. Unlike the post-industrial time, it's very difficult in terms of training. And it requires a synthesis of knowledge, experience, a bit of education, and the rest is contributed by the environment. And the outflow for such people makes even more damage, and it's very difficult to substitute such people, and therefore snatching no longer works. You have actually to think about nurturing them. Well, Nizhny Novgorod in that part. And I'm not flattering you all the time, and will proceed with the difficulties and challenges, but the region is nurturing such youth, starting from school, proceeding with universities. And I do think that we have already started that story, training soft skills, these competences, which according to the employers account for 50 to 60% of success for the young specialists, so that we could pick them up and offer to the market. Andrey, I promise that there will be some provocative questions, but actually we are praising each other. Everything looks nice, but certainly you must have certain difficulties in the region. I think that you must encounter certain challenges which are typical of many other regions. And probably you even have communicated to some of the regions about that. So what mistakes you made, what challenges you faced, and what inevitable problems you are facing. Well, everything can be reduced to what we have just discussed, what we try to do. We try to find an approach, and comprehensive one. Life is so much interesting, and people have so many multifaceted interests that, for instance, before we used to have a mono sound, now this is a stereo sound. And you cannot just make people happy once you provide them just one thing, one factor. The biggest problem is that the competence of municipal personnel, of administrators, are quite low. And it takes time to change that situation. So there is a problem within that factor. It's very difficult to convince people that they don't have necessary competences for today's realities, let alone tomorrow. And we can do that only through culture. And the culture is a kind of a medium. On the one hand, it is quite flexible, but at the same time, you cannot impose that top-down. A strong team of leaders in the region, either in government or in terms of business, would assemble in one room and set the rules of the game. No, that doesn't work. A lot depends on the enlightenment, on education. And we have to somehow bring down negative coloring. A lot of employees and some employers are permanently dissatisfied, disenfranchised, and I like very much what is going on amid the pandemic, how the authorities are interacting with business. Now came a full entrepreneur. This is a person who defines his or her risks and understands that they are running the risk either profiting from that or losing money. And just within a month's time, a lot of companies went bankrupt. So it means that we have a very unsustainable environment. We have not done with one project and we are launching another project. But the stuff matters. And last year, I made a discovery for myself. If you move from a region of the Russian Federation to the global scale, we're not alone. That's a common problem. I always thought that all the wars are waged either for resources or for religious purposes. But if you deep dive into that problem, all the wars are staged for jobs. I don't remember figures exactly, but 76 million working age people are living in Russia, and we have actually about the same number of jobs and in the world, actually. Actually, there is only 1.6 billion jobs, so it means that there is a shortage of jobs. Once we enter the digitalization age, it means that this shortage would increase. We keep saying within the Russian government, and we're not discussing that, but we're prepared for that. I think that this social nature of the Russian Federation, more than 80% of the Russian budget is earmarked for social purposes. So it means that in the upcoming decades, we're ready to take care of our residents, of our citizens. We are ready to offer such infrastructural decisions which will help the country to earn money, but at the same time would help us to take care of the people who either don't have jobs or do not have appropriate jobs commensurate with their skills. And it requires the skills which are needed today and tomorrow. A quick question, and after that I will pass the back to Olga. Amid the pandemic, although actually public administration is a more sustainable thing rather than business, do you see the inflow of employees, of applicants amid the pandemic? Well, this is a follow-up of what we started speaking about. The pay rate of civil servants in many regions is 1.5 times lower the average business one. So we saw a decrease in the churn. Just responsibility is quite high, and well, the pay is not good, but there are no other benefits, so the churn is reduced. But the last year, for instance, the contests for some low positions failed in 20% cases. So it means that we had to make a contest again and again, so people are not opting for the public administration. That's a question about the attractiveness of the civil service. Olga started with a survey of the region, and you said that many regions see shortage of the personnel. Well, outside Nizhny Novgorod, what are the regions of the Russian Federation have to set up new teams, and what problems they have to face in terms of the HR, in terms of the personnel? What would it be about? The churn, outflow of people, barriers, red tape, training? Well, our survey shows that, if I'm not mistaken, about 50-something% for civil servants are the ones who actually got promoted within the public administration. Is it good or bad? Is it good or bad that a person just found a job within public administration and got promoted? And so when a civil servant graduated from some institute and works as a civil servant for 30-40 years, Andrey, I don't think that this is good, but it depends on the situations of the people who actually are developing very seriously, but there are those who are stagnating. So they have to change the spheres of the work. I think that you have to change the environment, not the sphere of activity. The churn is quite big. So a person who worked for more than 10 years, and a new, for instance, minister is appointed, and he would say, okay, we'll do everything and you, so let's follow the global trends. And the lion's share of the team would say, okay, we know that, we heard that story. You are the fifth in our team for the last 10 years. So it means that this person would see the following risks. I'm ready to work with you as a boss, but in a couple of years you would be either sacked or you would be moved, and you are sacked, probably I will be sacked. So it means that I will follow all your instructions technically, but I'm not echoing what you are doing. We have to introduce changes in the corporate culture, in the public culture, and we have to change the motivation in business. We're used to the fact that actually I came to public service from business. So we are ready for feedback in the business environment, but in public administration, we are not ready for that. You just make an instruction, this instruction is fulfilled, and that's it. There is no feedback. Olga, let's go on with the difficulties that the regions are going to face. Andrew complemented what I said. A little bit more than 50% of those who started their career in public administration, about 20 of them actually would come from the defense ministry, from other power-wielding ministries, siloviki, and about 3 to 4% would come from business. And those who came from business to public administration, their self-esteem was quite low. They were very critical about themselves compared to those who started their career from scratch. These people don't have any self-criticism at all. Bulk of the people are the ones who actually opted for the public administration and got promoted further and further. They are very sustainable to any changes. Back in Skolkovo, we noticed that. So once a new governor is sworn in and we start developing these new projects, we restructure the mentality, the culture, and everything. And some people succeed in that, but in some cases, there are very specific cases that this is just quicksand.
We, as young pioneers, have come and have left, and the quicksand starts sucking in everything, and the environment remained the same. So you'll have to fight, yes, and systemically, even not at the level of a new governor who comes and establishes his new regulations. We should start it at the stage of personnel training, which is still archaic. But I know that the personnel training system in Skolkovo and in Ranipa is changing very quickly. We have just about 2 minutes left, so colleagues, let's have a very short wrapping up. For a region to become a very good place to live in, to develop economically, etc., 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 it has to do to make a few new steps regarding the personnel. So could you summarize it in 4 or 5 points? Please, Andrey first and Olga second, say what the points are. First of all, life in the region must become interesting. The second factor, you need a lot to focus on children, of preschool and school age, because when a child comes from the school here and says, well, our school is so cool, no parent will move to Moscow. And third, everywhere a lot of toolkits must be given to everybody to do, and to provide a lot of information on where the world is going, where the country is going, etc. And this information should be accessible, clickable, so that in 2 clicks you would understand the environment where you are. and establish your own path of development. Olga, I would add that the regional team should understand and accept that the world has become a multi-scenario one, and there is an infinite number of development paths, and so we should not say that we are for all good and and against everything bad, and we should develop our teams accordingly. Not just we should train them in accordance with specific objectives. Thank you very much. I think we have had a very good conversation. Andrey, and is Nizhny Novgorod ready to replicate its experience? We are not just ready, we want it very much. Only when we act together, we can do something serious. I would like very much for several units of the Russian Federation to get together and to promote toolkits which make our life of our people better. Wonderful. Andrey, Olga, thank you. So we engage with the regional teams and we engage with the young people. Thank you very much also for keeping the time. We have had a wonderful session.